Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Brass Chat here with Brass Band England and the Brass Foundations Programme. I'm Paul Fisher, and I'm very, very happy to welcome my special guest today, Kay Charlton. Hello, Kay.
Hi, Paul. Hi there.
Lovely to see you. So, for those of you who don't know, Kay is the brains behind the fantastic Bollywood Brass Band. She's the arranger, the project manager of that group. And so today I'd love to find out lots about the work that you do, Kay, but I'd also like to find out about how you got to this point. We've been lucky enough to meet each other. Well, I met you when you were delivering a CPD session for Hertfordshire Music Service, which was inspiring. And so it would be great to kind of get to that point and see how I know that you could help our brass banding communities across the whole of the UK, really. So tell me, how did it all start for you, Kay? How did you pick up a trumpet?
Well, good question. I started on the recorder in primary school, like many people, certainly in
Yeah.
my generation. Probably these days it's a ukulele, but I started on the recorder. I had a go at the guitar for a while, but looking back, I can see I must have been pretty bad at the guitar because I didn't get very far. And then I was in the Girls' Brigade, so a youth
Oh,
organisation. Here I am confessing. And I joined that with a friend when I was, I don't know, 8 or 9. And I just carried on doing that. And then when I was, I don't know, 11 or 12, probably 12, someone said, oh, we can join the band. And the local band did a parade around the streets first Sunday of the month and stuff like that. So I just went along and someone gave me and I now know it was like a cavalry trumpet. In fact,
wow.
it was very like this shape,
Yeah,
obviously, and not a bugle, but a trumpet shape. And
yeah.
they just said, well, you just blow it like this, and off I went. So obviously, you've only got the open harmonic notes, so I managed to get all 5 notes fairly reasonably quickly, and just enjoyed doing that. And then when I got to secondary school, which would be year 9 now, the music teacher said, "Oh, does anybody fancy having a go on the trumpet? There's brass trials today." So I said, "Oh, I can play it a little
Oh,
bit."
wow.
Anyway, went along and met the trumpet teacher, and then pretty soon I was in for grade 4 because I could already read music and I could already get a sound. So, and then it just went from there, really. So I went through all the grades when I was at school, joined. So this was in Northampton,
Okay.
and then joined the Northamptonshire County Youth Orchestra. So I
Which
got
I can remember those days that well, it still is the case. Northamptonshire's got a thriving kind of banding and ensemble community, hasn't it? I can remember doing music for youth with the Northamptonshire County Youth Orchestra on the stage. I was from my little school in North Wales, but we might have been on the same stage. Who knows?
Yeah. So I don't have a banding background really. It was the orchestra, and then I went off to the University of East Anglia to do a degree in music in Norwich. That degree course is now closed, but still. And then I didn't know what to do next really.
Okay.
And that's the thing, I didn't go to music college in London, and meeting people now, the people who sort of went to music college and had all those ready-made sort of London contacts, I didn't really have that. So I eventually moved to London in this was mid to late 80s, and then sort of started falling in with people. I thought I was going to be in an orchestra, but that didn't happen. Started meeting people and playing sort of not jazz so much, but sort of jazzy and world music type stuff. And then eventually joined the Bollywood Brass Band, which we'll probably talk about in a bit. But
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that you say about going to uni and then what to do next, and it's something that I think that you know an awful lot about. But basically, that thing as us musicians, we want to play, but ultimately we have to wear lots of different hats, don't we? We can't just play. You have to
yeah,
be able to turn to lots of different things. So when did you first get into the teaching kind of side of things, Kay?
yeah. Well, like a lot of people, I suppose I came to London and I joined a sort of amateur semi-pro orchestra, and then someone asked me if I could dep for their brass teacher, and then I ended up teaching in their school. So and then like a lot of us, teaching was kind of supporting my playing, and so I've always taught and I've always played, and I've been lucky enough to be able to maintain both of those aspects of my career. And they've kind of gone along side by side and joined up much, much more in the recent years. So I was a brass Perry for many years, and I've only just stopped doing that really. And then realize that actually you need to really think about how you're doing your teaching and work at it to be a good teacher and to progress and to enjoy it. And then when the whole class instrumental teaching came in the early 2000s, I started doing that just because I thought, this is the future, let's get in there. Found it incredibly difficult, and then really started thinking about how I could make that easier and better for myself and maybe for others as well.
Yeah. So obviously that's something that I do most days of my working life. It's exactly what you do. In fact, all of my teaching now is whole class brass. I love it. And just to be able to make that difference to children's lives is just so rewarding, isn't it? But of course, we know how that rolls and how it works, but our audience might not know. You and I are talking about whole class brass, but they might not know what that means. So give us an example of one of your typical kind of whole class sort of schools, if you like.
Yeah, well, it depends where you are in England, this is a consequence of the National Plan for Music Education and the way that music hubs are structured in different areas, like the old music services. And one of the core roles of every music hub in England is to ensure that every primary school child gets the opportunity to learn an instrument in addition to voice, so an actual instrument. I believe that when this came from a statement that the Labour Party made in 2000, and I believe every sort of music service was given a chunk of money and said, here's some money, we want every child to learn an instrument. So consequently, it's very different depending where you are. Most of my teaching has been in Southeast London, and I've been quite lucky. It hasn't been whole classes, but I've done it in tandem with other teachers. So I've had 10 trumpets or 15 trumpets, but I've rarely had to teach 30 at a time. I do sort of workshop stuff now, which is more whole class. But basically, you've got, say you've got 30 trumpet players, and they're going to learn the trumpet for a whole year. They're probably 8 or 9, year 4, year 5. They're not all going to get a sound on the instrument. They're not all going to want to learn the trumpet. So your job is really to give them a musical experience and keep them all involved somehow. And I went on to do a master's in music education just 4 or 5 years ago. And I did that as my sort of main theme for my dissertation, writing repertoire and really thinking about how you can keep everyone involved so that they want to carry on. Because the point of this, every child gets a go for a year, or it may only be a term, but what happens next and how do you get them to want to continue?
Yeah, so we can talk a little bit more about that, because obviously that is such a huge part of what we do. And of course, with my brass band hat on, that's something that the brass banding communities are really keen to try and encourage. And us as brass teachers want to see our children that we teach to move into communities and to ensembles, because ultimately that's where we, make friends, isn't it, really? And so, yes, so you've been writing some material to encourage those children that have done the year's kind of first access sessions to then learn a little bit more. So could you tell us a little bit about the material and what makes it work for the children and how difficult it is? What range are we talking about? So our listeners have got a bit of an idea about that.
Well, I think it's really important that children get to play a range of music from different styles. I loved classical music when I was growing up, but that wasn't my background at all. And so, children should hear and play classical music and music from different countries and traditions and all kinds. So when I was doing my master's, I had to write a 10,000 word dissertation, but I decided to write music instead. So, and I did an action research project on my pupils at the time. So I wrote repertoire that was specifically aimed at whole class teaching, and then sort of measured the children's reaction and how many of them carried on and wanted to carry on and why. And I've just got a pile of resources here, if you don't mind. I'm just going to flash them up.
Yeah, go for
it. This is not actually a book anymore. It's a download from Warwick Music, so it's pretty cheap to get hold of. So this is the music I did for my dissertation, and I wrote music with backing tracks. So for me, if you've got a class of kids and, not everyone's making a very nice sound necessarily, some people are not getting it at all. I wrote, the first song is called Here's a One Note Tune, and it's basically got a disco backing track. And
it's really good. Highly recommended.
Here's a one note tune. Da, like that. You can blart away on that. It doesn't matter what you're playing or whether you're mispitching or whatever. But basically, in lesson 3 or whatever, you're holding the instrument the right way around. You're blowing through it. You're using a bit of technique, using your tongue. You know when to play and when not to play. There's a little chorus bit you can sing, so you can sing that bit whether you can play the notes or not. And then there's space in all of these songs. There's a bit of space for people to improvise or make up their own responses. It can be moving from copybacks, copying the teacher, but then space to, instead of copying, to respond and make up your own response, sort of thing. So I wrote 11 songs in different styles. Obviously got a kind of Bhangra Bollywood one in there because that's something I'm really familiar with. And the backing tracks, I tried to make them as authentic as possible. I mean, I did it in GarageBand, taught myself GarageBand to do that. I've moved on to Logic since then to do tracks.
Posh.
So that's an example of whole class repertoire.
I think what I would love to say about it is that when we are teaching the children and we talk about lesson 3 and stuff, to our listeners, it might sound like, gosh, well, how are they going to do that? But actually, the reality of the situation is that most of the children do it, don't they? They don't really think about it, and they just do it. And I like to try and get the teachers involved as much as I can. And it's really interesting to see the difference between the teachers doing it and the children doing it, because the children can just pick it up, whereas the teachers think about it, don't they? They've got that, oh, well, how's this, and they can't sort of believe it that the kids just take to it so quickly, and yet they really, the sort of psychology of the situation kicks in with the teachers, which I find really fascinating. And it's great to have the boot on the other foot so the kids are teaching the teachers, really.
And I think the teachers of fear as well, fear of failure and fear of perhaps looking silly in front of their pupils. Some teachers are better at looking silly than others, so just joining in and making it fun. I mean, I had one teacher who really took to it and then started having lessons with me and
amazing.
Played for herself.
Yeah, and that's brilliant, isn't it? And so we're talking about the level that they can attain, and then how we push that forward is something that's really important, isn't it? So what's the next step after you've got this book that you've just shown us? What's the next sort of set of things that you can show us?
Two things. One is I recently, sorry, just dropped my phone into the waste paper bin, but that's fine.
It's okay.
I still had all this stuff about whole class teaching in my head, and just really thought there's not much information out there for new teachers. Teachers coming out of college or university, whatever, they get, they want to play, but they end up teaching. But to do it well, you really need to think about how you're going to set up your classroom, how you're going to give out the instruments. I mean, the first time I had 15 trumpet players and I said, well, there's the case, open the case. Well, that was a nightmare because don't know how to open a trumpet case. Why would they? So just thinking step by step and being creative with your lessons. Anyway, I managed to convince College Music that there was a book in it. So and just last year had this published, and it's just a page per idea, and it's part of their 100 inspiring ideas range. I only had to do 50 inspiring ideas. So that's writing about the subject, but then moving on really, I suppose, to the stuff I do with the Bollywood Brass Band. So we wrote some tutor books. Well, I wrote some tutor books. So I started off with the trumpet one, and this sort of goes. This is more like a sort of team brass tutor with written tunes. This is all original stuff because you can't use copyrighted actual Bollywood songs, but just writing in a Bollywood style, just to say, well, you can learn C and D, but you can play over a Bhangra groove backing track, and you can try and then you can watch a bit of a film and try and make up your own Bollywood music using 3 notes. You can be creative as soon as you can play a few notes.
Okay, so first things first, just to tell everybody, the book that Kay showed us first, the Collins book, if you're just coming out of music college and you're looking for some teaching work, the music services that are out there will want you to do whole class instrumental teaching. It's the thing that people do. And that book will be like a Bible. That will be so helpful, because the things that Kay has just kind of talked about, how to get the instruments out of the case, if you can do that effectively, it saves so much hassle and stress in the classroom. And to be able to do those things clearly and easily is so useful. So I would heartily recommend getting hold of that. That's great. So let's talk about Bollywood Brass Band then, and how that has kind of developed really. And tell us about the education projects you're doing. So I know we talked just before we came on air about that you're in Yorkshire and in Birmingham and Kent with projects. So I'm gonna read them out so all of our people. So Wakefield, Barnsley, Doncaster, Rotherham, Kirklees, Leeds, Calderdale, and Bradford are all going to be getting a little bit of Bollywood Brass Band. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've because I've always been teaching and playing, and this year the Bollywood Brass Band is 30 years old. Can you believe it?
Wow.
Yep. So that started with just playing. When we first started it, we just played for some Indian weddings. We used to play around Diwali, and then gradually. I mean, we were the first ensemble to do this, to play at Indian weddings. It's a big tradition in India because of the military bands that went out with the British Army and stuff. So it's a bit like Coals to Newcastle. The English brass band or military tradition went to India. Indian men were learning brass and wind instruments and playing in the military. And then after independence in 1947, the British left, but the instruments stayed behind. The guys kept the musical knowledge, and Indian movies were getting really big at that time as well, with all the singing and dancing that we're kind of familiar with. And then so the brass banding guys were playing the Indian songs, and Indian weddings are always ridiculously huge and amazing and noisy. And so the brass bands started playing for the Indian weddings. So we started doing that in the early 90s. And then we started recording. We've done several CDs now and collaborations with different people. And then the education stuff, because I realised I was doing all this education stuff, and then I just started fitting it all together. So we did our first big project funded by the Arts Council in 2017, which was an anniversary of Indian independence. And we started building on my whole class repertoire, making 3 notes fun and interesting. I sort of devised this idea of the progression project. So taking a popular Bollywood song and reducing it down to 3 notes. And then, so we did this really great project in Slough and Bedford, actually. And we actually did a performance at the end with the Bedford Town Band as well. So they're brass bands. Yeah. So we had schools playing a 3-note version of Bollywood songs. We had intermediate ensembles, so their music hub or secondary school ensemble playing the same tune but a little bit harder. And then we had Bollywood Brass Band and Bedford Town Band playing it at our sort of level, and we were all on stage together. So the kids playing 3 notes, can actually think, wow, I could join that music hub band, and and then maybe I could join the town band, and then I might even go on and do music professionally and be in a band like the Bollywood Brass Band. So that's my idea of the progression project. And then just before lockdown, Bollywood Brass Band got awarded a nice big chunky grant from the Arts Council. Amazing. And thank God we did, because it kept us occupied during lockdown, writing loads of music. So, I mean, you said I'm the arranger. There are other arrangers as well, particularly Sarah Moore, who plays the soprano. So she and I have worked together arranging and also composing original stuff as well. So the latest project, the one that we're doing in Yorkshire, Birmingham and Kent Music, is based on a project we did with a South Indian violinist called Jyotsna Srikanth, who's virtuosic, amazing.
Wow.
And we've kind of got quite familiar with Bollywood music now and North Indian music, but South Indian music is very different. It developed in a very different way, and it's much more complicated.
Oh, wow.
You may have heard of ragas. I guess we know ragas are like scales. In South Indian music, there are 72 ragas, and then they all have as well. And someone like Jyotsna will know every single one, and they all have rules about how you might ascend and descend differently, or how you can ornament. So anyway, learning about that. But for this project, we wrote 4 originals. Myself and Sarah wrote 2 original songs each, based on some sort of Carnatic riffs that we got from Jyotsna. And then we've done 2 arrangements, which other guys in the band have done. But again, same thing. So we have created, and these are freely available. They're not on our website yet, but they will be. This is what we're doing in Yorkshire. We wrote Bollywood Brass Band versions of these songs, and then based on a very simple tune. This is also for strings, actually, this one as well.
Right.
Yeah, but 3 to 5 note versions of a simple tune, and then again arranged for intermediate band and Bollywood brass band. And so we went to schools. So we sent out the music just before Christmas, and then we actually did 2 trips to Yorkshire in January, which I thought weren't going to happen because of Omicron. But
Yeah,
everyone actually, you know what, just come. So
fab.
we did some of it via Zoom from Barnsley Civic, but some of the schools we went into, schools were so happy to have live musicians. They
Yeah.
were saying, some of these children haven't been, really been at school much over the last 2 years. We don't know how they're going to respond. We're not even sure that they can file in and sit down in rows anymore, you know.
I know that feeling. I've got a year three class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing that difference that year out of school has really had on the young children, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
No, it's fine. No. Anyway, so we've done a performance in each school to play the songs. We've done CPD for the tutors, so the brass tutors have got access to these new little tunes, all with backing tracks as well. So in the classroom, you can teach the tune using the backing track, which provides a sort of framework for learning the tune. We did a CPD session talking about sort of Indian type music techniques that you could use just to make
Yeah.
teaching more interesting, get the kids fired up. And then we went into the schools and did a workshop on the pieces. We're going back again in March. And then in June, we are all going to the Elsecar Centre, Elsecar Heritage,
Okay.
big venue. And we're going to get all these kids from Yorkshire together with us on the stage performing their 3 note versions and hopefully some intermediate ensembles as well, so that they can see where they can go next.
It sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to get in touch with you and talk about that more because I think that could work very well for some of the areas that I work in. But this is such a great opportunity. The example that you gave, Bedford Town Band and the surrounding area of Bedford, how our banding communities can interact and make those links with the schools and the music hubs. It's such an important part of moving forward and for the children to be able to progress. So that sounds amazing. We talk about CPD because we're both teachers, but also I think it would be really worthwhile for bands and banding communities to get you in to do what they would probably describe as workshops. So could you just tell us, our time has flown, I can see what the time is and it's flown by. Just tell us in a little bit more detail, if you were to go into a workshop day with a brass band, for example, to teach their tutors some helpful tips, what would be on the menu really, Kay? What would you be talking about with them?
We have arranged quite a few Bollywood tunes for
Okay.
band, so we could be working on a Bollywood tune. I mean, I would be talking about playing with style, section work, obviously, maybe improvising. I'm really keen on promoting improvising as having a go and not, I mean, I was never taught to improvise. And the first time somebody said to me, do a solo, I was like, what do
Yeah.
you mean? Where are the notes? Which is, so having a go at improvising, making up some music in the style, and just playing different music and playing if you've got a percussion section, maybe bring in one of our door players as well and learning to play
Yeah.
drums that sound like Bhangra drums and yeah.
Yeah, amazing. You're absolutely right. And just to go back to the children don't have a problem having a go, do they?
I
They'll
know.
have a go. They'll pick a few notes and they'll have a go. They're happy and brave enough to do it. And to get them at that age improvising is fantastic. And then it gives them the sort of bravery to carry on doing it. I was exactly like you. I went to brass band practice instead of improvisation class. And as much as I love my brass band, I really wish I'd have gone to improvisation class a little bit too.
Yeah,
Because there we are. But anyway, it's all good, I guess, now. So I think what you've told us today is fantastic. I think there's a real opportunity for us banding communities out there to get in touch with Kay and Bollywood Brass Band to connect. First of all, a couple of questions. How do people get in touch with you, Kay? Could you tell us what the easiest way of getting hold of you, your website, and also are Bollywood Brass Band looking at doing any tours in the future that we could come and check out concerts?
yes.
Excellent.
Are looking at touring in October to celebrate our 30th birthday. And it looks like we will be coming to these Yorkshire areas that we mentioned because we really want to build on those education contacts and get
Yeah.
people who, to say, oh, I've done that workshop, oh, they were playing in the area, let's go as a family, let's go and see this. We're about creating new audiences if possible. But yeah, we'll be touring October time. Bollywood Brass Band, if you just Google Bollywood Brass Band, but it's bollywoodbrassband.co.uk. And I do have my own website, Kay Charlton, I think, .co.uk. But anyway, Google me, find me on Twitter. I'm at K Bollywood, and the Twitter and Facebook is at Bollywood Brass. So do get in touch. Any questions? And we'd love to come out, either me or the band, through the band, whatever. When we did that project in Bedford, we also did something up in Manchester, and we worked with Middleton Band.
Yeah. Wow.
Band. And so it was a separate performance, but part of the same funded project. And we did the same thing that so I went up and did some workshops with the youth band, and then the whole of the Bollywood Brass Band came and we all played together. And I think for young players to play alongside professionals is such a brilliant thing. And just one tiny thing, because I know we could go on forever, but we went as part of the project in Kent. We went to a school and worked with the year 4 group, and the string teacher said, oh, next week's class, she said, they're year 6, they really don't want to do it. Boys deliberately broke a string last week, they're going to be really different. We turned up, we did a concert, we did a workshop first. This year 6 group were like putty in my hands, not just me, but they were great, and they weren't messing about. And I think just the fact that it's something different, it's like an intervention, if you can get a group to come in, or a workshop group, and they loved it. And hopefully that boy who last week was breaking strings actually was perhaps they were looking at the drums or the trumpet, maybe it wasn't their instrument, but you'll find your instrument if you're given that opportunity. Like guitar wasn't my instrument, but I found the trumpet.
I'm not surprised they enjoyed it. They've got you to inspire them, Kay, so of course they're going to love it. I would just say we run a Brass Band England. We started a project called Proms in the Playground last year, which was kind of because we weren't allowed to play indoors, obviously, at that time, so we took everything outdoors. And it's from July the 4th this year. So it would be amazing if we could maybe get Bollywood Brass Project and the schools engaged in that, perhaps, and get you involved with a local band somewhere in Yorkshire or Birmingham or Kent, and get some performances, because that would be fantastic. It's been brilliant to chat to you. I could chat for ages and get some more bits of wisdom and advice from you. But for now, thank you so much, and catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.